In the last video, I walked you through an easy coaching method, a very effective coaching method called the GROW model. In this video, what I'd like to do is just introduce you to some core skills, also known as competencies, that will help you navigate through the GROW model. You know, the International Coach Federation, they list, I think it's 11 core competencies that you need in order to become a credentialed coach. But I suggest that if you have a basic knowledge of at least 3 of the core competencies, you'll be well on your way to being able to coach your own employees. The 3 competencies that are skills that I want to talk about today include active listening, powerful questioning, and facilitating action steps. Let's first think about active listening. You know, active listening is probably one of the most important, if not the most important skill, coaching skill, because it's out of active listening that you're able to generate some powerful questioning. And it's out of powerful questioning that you're able to facilitate the action steps that will move your employee towards their goal. And some suggest that when it comes to listening, there are actually 3 levels of listening. The first level is the lowest level, and it's simply referred to as listening to a person. Listening to a person. You know, sometimes we listen in a variety of ways, but when we listen to a person, we're really not listening to them. I mean, we're listening in a way that, how does the information that they're trying to convey, how does it affect me? You know, what does the information mean to me? So it's more like me-centered listening. And actually, in that particular level of listening, the person is also easily distracted by the things going on in the room. It could be texts that you're getting on the phone. It could be side conversations, or even the conversation going on in your head. Anyway, level 1 is kind of the lowest level of listening, and it's pretty much the level that we listen to on a daily basis, that we listen at on a daily basis. So if you want to be a good coach, you need to at least begin to move into what's called level 2 listening, which is listening with the person. You know, when you're listening with the person, you're really tracking the person you're coaching. So much so that you're able to reflect back a lot of the information that the person has said. In fact, a good coach, as they're coaching somebody, what they'll do is periodically summarize what the person has said. Not really parroting the words, but just capturing the thoughts. And unlike level 1 listening, in level 2 listening, you're not so much easily distracted by the external things or even the internal thoughts in your head. No, you're very keenly focused on the coach, so much so that you're actually beginning to listen beyond the words. In fact, you're starting to go into what's called level 3 listening, which is listening for the person. You know, most of us know that listening or speaking or communication goes beyond simple words. People communicate with emotions, they communicate with voice inflection, and they communicate with body language. But most of the time, the person being coached are so focused on just getting their thoughts out in the right words that they actually they're not unaware of the communication that's going on beyond the words. And again, what a good coach does, a coach is able to just kind of look beyond the words and to begin to pick up things that the person being coached might not even begin to notice. You know, things like repeated words or emotions or certain body language. You know, often those things are communicated to the person being coached simply with expressions like or statements like, you know, I noticed when you were talking about possibly getting that new position, you got really excited. You know, or I noticed when you were talking about this one particular issue, you used the word fear a lot. You know, those are observations that are made really at level 3 listening, observations that can help the person being coached become incredibly aware or more aware of themselves. And it can also help the coach go into the second core competency, which is powerful questioning. You know, why are questions powerful? In a nutshell, questions are powerful because, again, they are generated out of active listening. They create new awareness for the person being coached, but they also move the person ultimately towards the action steps. And there's a lot of different types of questions, but powerful questions seem to have some of the same common characteristics. For one, powerful questions tend to be open-ended. You know, you can have questions that are either open-ended or closed. And, you know, a closed-ended question, most of us are familiar with that. A closed-ended question is usually a question that can be answered by a simple yes-no, such as, do you like your job? It's a simple yes/no question. Now, although those aren't bad, closed-end questions aren't always bad, but a good coach wants to limit those closed questions, because usually what happens is they have to be followed up with another questions, and they really, limit the information that they're getting from the person being coached. So a good coach, again, will kind of gear towards open-ended questions, because open-ended questions, they help get the person to think. They help create this new awareness. So instead of simply asking a question like, do you like your job? You may ask an open-ended question like, well, what do you like about your job? What are some of the things that you really like about your job? And that's, again, going to stimulate possibly some new awareness. So again, powerful questions are open-ended. But powerful questions are also not leading questions. Again, coaching is about getting people to think. And so leading questions tend to violate that particular principle, because the answer is often built right into the question. A good example would be, let's say, again, you're dealing with someone with a time management issue. You might say something like, what do you think about getting up 20 minutes earlier in order to get at work on time? Now, although that's not a bad question, again, it's a leading question because the answer is built within that particular question. The idea of getting up 20 minutes earlier. Now, the problem is that the coachee, the person being coached, might say, oh, that's a great answer. That's a great suggestion. That's what I'll do. But unfortunately, the odds are that that person probably won't do that because they don't own it, because they didn't create it. It didn't come from them. You see, people being coached are more likely to do what they say they're going to do if they own the particular option, if they own the action step. So again, good, powerful questions are not leading questions. So again, a good example would be, instead of, did you consider getting up 20 minutes earlier? You might say, what are some things that you can do that will help ensure that you will get to work on time? And so again, powerful questions are not leading questions. And also, powerful questions tend to be short and concise. Many coaches, including myself at times, we tend to ask a question that's kind of long and wordy and rambling. And so what happens is, you get this kind of confused look on the person you're coaching, and so what you do is the coach begins to just spend a few minutes trying to unpack that particular question so it makes more sense. And there's a couple things wrong with that. For one, it indicates that probably the coach is probably talking a little bit more than he or she should be. Again, coaching is about the person being coached. It's not about the coach. And so if anybody should be talking, it's the coachee. And another problem with a long and rambling type question, it can easily cut off the good flow of the conversation. In other words, the person being coached is thinking so much about the question and what it means that they never get around to actually answering the question. So it cuts the flow of the conversation. Another problem with rambling type questions, it really is an indicator that maybe the coach is spending too much time in his own head, thinking about questions, trying to, again, to evaluate the situation, rather than being fully present with the person being coached, and really just learning just to respond to whatever is being said, back and forth, back and forth. What some would say, it's kind of like a dance going on. So again, ideally, powerful questions are very short, they're very concise, instead of long and wordy. And if that's done well, then that's going to help facilitate the next step, which is facilitating action steps. Again, as we said before, a coaching conversation without action steps is actually just a nice conversation. But a coach's responsibility is to work with the person to design action steps that'll help move the person from where they are to where they want to be, or from their current reality to their goal. And although there's a lot of different places that, that idea of designing actions could occur in the GROW model, most often it occurs within the O stage, the option stage. And if the coach has done his or her job well, by the time you get to the end of the O stage, you're going to have, again, a whole variety of options for moving forward. And at that particular time, it's the coach's responsibility to begin to narrow those options down, again, from the ones that they could do to the ones that they will do by way of action steps. And again, there's a lot of tools available to help kind of narrow that down. A very good tool that'll narrow it down and actually help it make it very specific is what's called the SMART tool. SMART is simply an acronym that's good to be applied to the various options or coming up with the action steps. And SMART, again, is just simply an acronym that means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And so a good example for this is, let's say the person decides, the person's concerned about time management, so he says, I think I need to read some time management books, which again is a very good goal, but it's a little bit too general. And so the coach can help them put the goal within the SMART framework in order to help ensure that it gets done. So for example, the person could say, I'm going to read the first chapter of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits book, and I'm going to do it within 2 weeks. And so that fits pretty well within the SMART framework because it's very specific. It's a certain book. It's measurable. It's 1 chapter. It's hopefully achievable. It's relevant to time management. And it's time bound because the person said they're going to do it in a couple weeks. So the idea of applying the SMART to these action steps help ensure that they're going to actually get done. They're going to get finished. Anyway, that's a broad overview of some 3 core competencies that are very important to get you on the road towards coaching your employees. Again, it's active listening, it's powerful questioning, and what it is and it's also facilitating action steps. And hopefully through these 3 videos, what you've got is again a good overview of how you can coach your employees. You can grow your employees or take a coach approach to growing your employees. But like any tool, the coaching is a good tool that can easily be learned. But like any tool, it takes a certain amount of training and practice to get really good at it. So that's why I offer kind of an extended version of this training. So you can go deeper into the concepts and also begin to apply some very practical steps for having it work within your own organization. Anyway, if you'd like more information about that, just respond to the link below this particular video or send me an email to chuckgonecoaching@gmail.com, and I'd be glad to follow up with you. Thanks again for being with me.